Hello, hello, and welcome to Roots and Branches Adoption Stories here on KFred Radio. I'm Janet Monroe, and I'm a birth mother. Now, all women who have children are birth mothers, but in the adoption world, it refers to the biological mother as opposed to the adoptive mother. But today's story introduces a different concept that I'm very curious as to how we should define it. Today's story delves into a part of family creation that, quite honestly, I'm not very familiar with. But I have so much admiration for the lady you will meet today. I want to say this right from the beginning. If I ask hard questions today, it is not coming from a place of judgment. It's just plain, simple curiosity. Because the only way we can truly understand each other is by being willing to ask questions and also being willing to listen to the answers. Today's conversation is about surrogacy. My guest, Darcy, has carried 4 children as a surrogate mother. Not because she had to, but because she chose to. She says she loved being pregnant, felt healthier, felt stronger, more energized while carrying a child. But what happens when you carry a baby for 9 months, knowing from the very beginning that the child will not be yours to raise? Is there still a bond? Does biology determine motherhood, or does the connection begin long before birth? Let's find out. So Darcy, welcome to Roots and Branches Adoption Stories. I am so glad that you're here today and that we're going to have this conversation. As I said, it's not something I'm familiar with, and I need you to give me all the details. So let's start at the beginning as to, you had 2 children of your own. You felt great when you were pregnant. And how did you get involved as a surrogate mom?
It was actually just a conversation over tea one day with a friend of mine who had, I don't want to say always wanted to be a surrogate, but she'd been thinking about it for years and just kind of quietly researching how to do it, and had become a surrogate, started the journey, and was excited to share her new adventure. She didn't know I was going to jump on board. We were friends, and she was excited to share what she was doing. And as soon as she told me about it, I thought, wait, they do that like here, not just in the movies and on TV? And she's like, yeah, they do it all over the place. I'm like, oh my goodness. And I instantly knew, just like you said, I loved being pregnant. And I remember saying to my husband, I want to say it was just months after our second child was born, if I could be pregnant my entire life, but without having more children, because 2 was enough, even at that age, I would. I absolutely loved it. And so this gave me an opportunity to be pregnant again, but also help somebody else at the same time. And so I got to benefit, but I got to see somebody else realize their dreams of being a parent. So it was like a win-win for me.
How did your family and friends feel about it?
My husband was on board right away. His favorite line throughout the different surrogacies, when someone mentioned that I was pregnant, he was like, "Oh, don't worry, it's not mine." As a big jokester that he is, he loves saying that. I'm like, "Oh, you're just causing drama." But he was on board. My children were 4 and 6 at the time I started, so they just didn't know. So we just had conversations throughout the journey, and there was no negative from them at all at any point. So I think they were on board as well. I can tell you, my mom was not on board. I went to tell her I was becoming a surrogate, and her comment was, "Where did you get such a silly idea?" Like, okay. And she was doing it out of love. Just, she was concerned about me and carrying another pregnancy and how it would impact my family. But she was not on board with any of them. Every time I told her I was pregnant again, she went, "Oh, again?" Like, "Yes, I am again." And I was kind of like the elephant in the room through holidays and family get-togethers, literally, because you could see that I was pregnant, but we didn't talk about it. It was just one of those things we did not talk about. And, that's okay. We still love each other. I see her every day. But it's just something she didn't agree with, and that was okay with me.
Did anyone think you were crazy for wanting to do this apart from your mother?
Yes, one of my sister-in-law, my husband has three sisters, actually four. One of them, she when we met for like a family barbecue, she's like, I don't know how you can possibly do that. Give away your baby. And she was not that she was against it, but it was just something she could never even imagine doing herself. So how could somebody else possibly do it? So no one really, other than my mom, was fully against it. They just couldn't understand how I could do it and when they didn't think they could.
I think that's my feeling as well, as not being able to understand how someone can do that. Um, and I understand that it's hard to find surrogate mums. And I think it's because
That's
we all have that feeling that it's not something that was meant to be, but it's actually something that's absolutely marvelous, and something so selfless that, as I said, I have so much admiration for you for what you've done to help other people. Can you explain how surrogacy in Canada works?
So yes, in Canada it's altruistic, which means surrogates do not get compensated or paid to be a surrogate, but they do get their pregnancy related expenses reimbursed. So that can be anything from like typical maternity clothes, lost work, wages because of appointments, babysitters if they need childcare for that, chiropractor, physio, massage, anything to care for them. All of this is reimbursed. So the goal is not to have any out-of-pocket expenses, anything detrimental to the surrogate and her family for this type of journey. But it is altruistic. You're not making money. You're not putting money away for your kid's college fund or saving up for a house. So it's interesting because in other countries it is paid. So when you see a paid model versus an altruistic model, some people are hesitant and wonder why someone would do it without getting paid. But you get to choose your intended parents. They could be Canadian, they could be international. You build lifelong connections with them. And it's after you've been released from the fertility clinic. So you're usually with the fertility clinic for the first trimester. And then it's just a typical pregnancy. You're going to your ultrasounds, you're having your blood work taken, you're getting all the typical checks from a midwife or an OB, and the delivery is wherever you want it to be, whatever hospital you want it to be at, and the intended parents come to you. And it's so it to me, it was just another typical pregnancy, and I didn't have to plan for a baby at the end.
I think that would be interesting. When it comes to the birth, is it natural birth, or is it cesarean, or or is it just the choice of that person?
It's just based on the surrogate and what is best for the journey. Because if she's already had cesarean sections, that's probably what it's going to be. If she's had natural birth, then they'll probably try naturally. It really has no bearing on the surrogacy whatsoever. The intended parents just have to manage that piece of the unexpected. When is baby going to come? If it is a natural birth, just like we do as moms when we go into labor at some random point.
So in Canada, it's not your eggs that are used, correct?
That is correct. It is an egg donor if it's a same-sex couple, or the intended mother's egg.
And how does it happen? When you sign up to become a surrogate mom, how do you have the eggs implanted?
So it goes through a series of physical and psychological checks. So as a surrogate, if you choose to work with an agency, that you can do agency or an independent journey. One just has the support and someone to guide you through the process a little bit easier. That's the agency way. But regardless of which way, you meet your intended parents, you get to know them, and then as you're getting to know them, you're getting a psychological screening done by a psychologist, a fertility one, and you're getting a physical screening. So the fertility clinic is checking all your blood stuff. They run a huge panel of hormones and all kinds of things, but they also check the physical, the uterus, to make sure there's nothing there that would prevent a healthy pregnancy. And then once all that is clear, you do go on medication, progesterone, estrogen, to help your body prepare for pregnancy, because it's not preparing for pregnancy. And once your uterus lining is what they call thick enough, then they transfer the embryo into the surrogate and hope that it implants like it would naturally coming down the fallopian tube. It just goes up the other way.
Okay, so genetically, there is no biological connection.
Correct.
How about emotionally easier, knowing that the child is not biologically yours?
To me, I think that would be easier. I had a conversation with a woman the other day who would be an egg donor, but never a surrogate. And I found that fascinating because I don't know if I could ever be an egg donor because that's little me's or parts of me's that's in somebody else's care and somewhere else in the world. But a surrogate, there's no genetic connection. So I think that created a barrier, like that safeguard, that attachment wasn't so strong. So I found it interesting to have that conversation. It was just last week about someone saying, oh yeah, I would totally be an egg donor, but I could never be a surrogate. Like, wow.
I had a conversation on the weekend actually with a woman because I was talking about you, this upcoming episode. And she was telling me that her brother was a sperm donor when he was going to university in order to make money and to pay for his education. And later in life, he found out that his sperm had been used and he'd created 5 children. And then he did connect with all 5. But it would be interesting, to know that you can be an egg donor and a sperm donor and that you can create children, but you never know until somebody decides to look, right?
Yeah, it's very fascinating.
So when you were pregnant, did you ever worry about connections or becoming attached to the child that you were carrying?
I didn't. To be honest, that was never a question I ever thought about. Oh, will I be able to give it up? Or am I going to be too attached? And I've had a lot of these conversations with women. And I think the women that are worried about that are just not suitable for surrogacy, which is totally okay because it's not for everyone, obviously. And I think if you're worried about being attached, then you may get more attached than someone that doesn't even cross their mind. Like it didn't in any of my pregnancies. I never questioned the attachment. And I think part of that also had to do with the intended parents. I knew them. I got to know them. I didn't know them before my journeys. Let me clear that up. They were strangers when I met them, but I got to know them and I saw the love that they had for this unborn baby. And seeing that joy was way more fulfilling than even considering an attachment to me. And I was done my family. I wasn't looking to grow my family. So I was very happy to say, here's your baby.
During the pregnancy, were you in touch with the couple?
Yes, all of them. Yes.
On a regular basis, you met them, you saw them, they were
well,
involved?
the one couple was from Ireland. Those were our first set of intended parents. So I didn't actually meet them in person until I was 20 weeks pregnant. They came over to Canada for that anatomy ultrasound and to find out the gender and all that fun stuff. But we didn't actually meet in person until that day. But we did a lot of video calls and emails and WhatsApp and all of the things. And they were at appointments if the midwife allowed through video call, and they did what they could to be involved using amazing technology.
Yes.
But I didn't actually meet them until halfway through that pregnancy.
Isn't it amazing what we can do with technology today?
Right? Yes.
So my question that I think about, because I think about being pregnant, is you're carrying a child. That child becomes familiar with your heartbeat, becomes familiar with your voice, it becomes familiar with the families around you, it becomes familiar with the music you like to listen to or the television shows you like to listen to. It feels your stress, it can feel your calm, your movement. So what do you think that bond is?
It's an interesting one for sure. I did think about that for sure during the first journey because the intended parents were in Ireland, so they weren't around. Yeah, we did a few video calls, but not enough for their voices and accents and their way of life to be familiar to this child that I was carrying. And like you said, the child got used to, the sounds of my children and my husband and what I was doing in this world. So I actually asked the intended parents to record themselves reading nursery rhymes or singing songs, whatever they wanted, so that I could play those voices because I was worried about that unfamiliarity with this child. At first, they're taken away from where they've developed and grown, but then they're moved to a place that doesn't even sound familiar or smell familiar or anything like that. So I was trying to do what I could, and I would play those nursery rhymes and songs on my belly through some headphones so that the baby could hear and hopefully get a little bit more familiar with their way of speaking and their accents so that it wasn't such a huge culture shock. But I did, when I delivered two babies for the Ireland family. So when they came to Canada for their second child, when I was almost delivering, we went out for lunch. And so they had their first child with them, and he was 2 at this point. I hadn't seen him, met him, talked to him, even on video since they left 2 years ago to go back home after his birth. So almost 2 years it had been, or more than 2 years, I guess, since I'd actually seen him or talked to him. And he had a bond with me. It was very interesting over lunch. He was in a strange restaurant. He was in a strange country with strange people. So he wouldn't eat. He's a 2-year-old, there's so much going on. And I was like, oh, let me see if I can try. And the little boy came over to me willingly, sat right beside me, kind of snuggled in. I left him for just a couple minutes, and then I was able to help him eat some food and get some sort of nourishment in him, because 2-year-olds without food, not a great situation. But it was interesting just to notice how he did bond with me without even knowing me at all. Between me and the person on the street, he had no idea the difference, except there was a familiarity that you could see. And then he went for a walk with my kids. Again, he hadn't heard them in 2 years, and he was comfortable taking their hands and going for a walk around the restaurant because he was a little restless, understandable, but he felt comfortable with us. So there is a bond that is created, and it's invisible, but it's definitely there. And I don't know if that would happen now. He'll be 10 in the fall. If he came to see us, if there would be some sort of familiarity, I don't know. But there definitely was, even after 2 years.
So I wonder if that child feels that feeling of abandonment that when we put up a child for adoption and it's taken right from us at the hospital, a lot of children feel abandoned and they don't know why. And I've heard there's adopted parents that let the child know from the day that they take them home that they're adopted because they talk just about the adoption word, right? So that the child, but they don't always understand what it means.
Right.
But there is that bond between the fetus and the actual parent. And then there is that abandonment feeling. So I just wonder how it works with surrogacy. Does part of your DNA go into that child, part of some of your genes, even though it's not created by you? You're basically, you're kind of an incubator, only a real one, not a machine, right?
Right, yes.
Yeah. So I just wondered, and we don't know. So are there any surveys on surrogate children as to how they react? I know there's a lot of talk with adopted children, finding out how their reaction is, but I don't know if there's anything that's being done with regards to surrogacy.
Not that I know of. And the first surrogate in Canada, I don't know about other countries, but the first surrogate here was about 35 years ago, so less than 40 years ago. And so those children are now in their 30s. And so anyone below that or younger than that are coming into, a world that believes it or is more aware of it, but still it's very down low. Not many people know about it. And we don't know how it impacts the children. Because I know, just like I'm sure with adoption, the adopted parents want their adopted child to feel as loved as possible. And yeah, someone did give you up, but we love you and we love you so much. We want you so much. Maybe we couldn't have children, so that's why we adopted. And it would be the same with surrogacy. But what about that nature piece, that attachment that is just developed when they're inside the womb? Because like you mentioned, it's not DNA, but my blood was flowing through this baby as they were growing. So there are things, DNA, there are other things in blood that would have an impact and would be there forever, just like DNA.
Yeah, I still have a hard time getting my head all around it. So I'm not the only one like that. There's got to be a lot of people wondering about that, right? So
Yeah.
there's so much that we don't really understand about that bonding. How did it feel? What was the moment of birth like for you?
Uh, they were all C-sections, all my surrogacies. So it was kind of bittersweet because I personally missed out on that moment that the intended parents see their baby for the first time. I have pictures or videos of that moment because I made sure there was somebody in place that would have that, because that, just seeing the joy, you can see it in their faces, you can see it in their whole body of how much they love this little baby that they are just seeing for the very first time. But I didn't get to see that in person because I was still laid up on the table. Because as soon as you give birth, baby is taken to their intended parents for skin on skin bonding and to start that process right away. So as a C-section, they hold the baby up over that sheet and they're like, "Oh, look at the baby." I'm like, "Oh, nice. Can you stitch me up and I can start recovering?" So it was bittersweet, really, because I couldn't be there in that moment. I couldn't physically hand baby to them, but I did see the love and the joy based on the videos and pictures I saw. So yeah, it was like that.
So as soon as you give birth, it goes to the parents,
Yes.
and then you have no more contact with the child, with the baby.
No, I got to see them through, I was in the hospital. I think I was only there for 24 hours, but baby was also there for 24 hours. Like, I think it's like that for a typical pregnancy. I don't remember. Mine, I had midwives, so it was different. But because baby was in the hospital, they had their own room that their parents stayed with the baby, and I had my own room. And they would go for little walks with the baby and come and see me because we were all in the maternity ward, and show me. And I got to hold the baby and snuggle. And then for the international ones, they had to stay in Canada. I think they were here about 4 weeks after birth because they have to get all the paperwork in place, birth certificates and stuff before they went home. So my family and I, we went and visited them. They were in Toronto. They had an Airbnb, so we went and visited them a couple times while they were here before they left. And with the parents that are here in Toronto, I got to visit them all the time, and they came and brought the baby out to see me when they were in the area. So I saw them until Ireland had to go back home, and then the other ones I've seen as they've grown up.
Did you have to protect your heart when you were carrying these children, these babies? I mean, like
No,
when I was pregnant and I knew my child was going to be adopted, it was kind of blocked the heart, built these concrete blocks around it so that I wouldn't be as hurt when I gave the child away. Did you have to do anything like that? Or how can
not
I do that?
that I did consciously, because knew right from the beginning that I was doing it for somebody else. So it wasn't my baby that I chose to give up, I was, like you said, an incubator. I was just babysitting this child until it was ready to live in the real world. So it wasn't a giving up energy whatsoever. It was a giving to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Giving up to giving to. All right, I like that. How do you define motherhood?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I just think it's really a maternal figure in somebody's life. It doesn't have to be blood related. It can be, definitely, but somebody that's there, like taking care of another child or taking care of a child, is really motherhood. And I think back in the day, everyone was a mother. Everyone, you lived in a village and you took care of everybody's child while taking care of your own. That's how we did it. And nowadays it's very isolating sometimes, but it's still just the act of caring for a child.
How do you define your role in these children's lives now?
I don't really have one. The couple from Ireland, those children, it was a same sex couple, so they know that there was an egg donor and they know that there was a surrogate that carried them. I haven't met them or spoken to them since they've had those conversations, so I'm just this person that carried them. I'm not really an aunt or anyone close to them whatsoever. I just was this person that helped them exist in this world. The one of the families after that, I delivered the little girl, and I see that family all the time. So I'm a family friend right now. Her mom miraculously got pregnant while I was pregnant and carried that baby to term when she couldn't before. So her daughters are 5 months apart, and she's struggling with how to tell them the difference, how to share with them that one of them was carried in her belly and one of them was carried in my belly. Because I've just been a family friend. Like, the girls know my boys and the family. We go for dinner every now and then. And we're just family friends at the moment. They are 6 now. Yes, the youngest one just turned 6. So they're getting to the point where she's going to have these conversations. And I don't know how that's going to go. To be honest, I don't know. A little bit of me is a little worried that it might change our relationship. Not that we are super close, but we're just family friends, and I don't want it to come between us or cause any tension in their family. And then the other family, I don't believe she knows that girl is 4. Yes, she'll be 4 in May. Ooh, this month she turns 4. And I don't think, again, I'm just a family friend, but a very distant family friend. I see them once a year at Christmas time. We get together around Christmas, but that's it. I think they talk about me in the family, but I don't know to what extent.
You'd almost compare it to like an open adoption.
Yeah, I think so.
Where you have some contact, but you're not there as a mother. You're having contact so that you're keeping, what happens to them, how they grow up,
Correct.
what's happening,
Yeah.
and know that they're healthy. Okay. So now we get into the part where the need for surrogates. You have since opened an agency called
Yep.
Embrace Surrogacy, correct?
Yep.
So tell us why you did that and where your journey's going to go.
So the main reason I did it is because I love surrogacy, and I had to stop being a surrogate due to age and number of C-sections. It just, in my eyes, became too dangerous, and I was sort of borderline if the clinics would accept me. I was too old. I don't feel myself as old, but too old for surrogacy. And it just gets more dangerous as a woman gets older, especially with that many surgeries. So I wanted to put my family first with that decision, so I couldn't be a surrogate anymore. But I love the industry. And one of my intended parents, my third journey, she was coming out of a corporate world. She just had two kids, one through surrogacy, and she wanted to do something different in her life and more meaningful than the job that she had had. And she's like, do you want to start an agency? And I had been working with a surrogacy agency for a few years, and that was just fizzling out for different reasons. And I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? I would love to stay in the industry. She wanted to do something more meaningful with her life. And she comes from the intended parent perspective, and I bring the surrogate perspective to it. So we thought it was a good connection, a good combination to run an agency so we could support both sides. And that's really what we do every day, is talk to those intended parents from around the world. We don't just service Canada, but there is need around the world. And then talking to women that are open to the idea of surrogacy and to become a surrogate in Canada.
You say there's a need for surrogates.
Yes, there
So they're
is.
not easy to find.
Correct. And I think it's just a lack of knowledge, because even like I've had people ask me just last month if it was legal in Canada. People don't know that it's an option. They don't know it's a thing. So whether you're an intended parent looking to have a child, or a woman considering or a good candidate to be a surrogate, you just may not know that it's a possibility or an opportunity for you.
How would you determine whether surrogacy was better or going through all the IVF treatments?
Well, I think most couples that come to us that are heterosexual have gone through all those IVF treatments themselves, and the doctor has said to them, there's nothing else we can do. It's not successful. Maybe you should consider surrogacy. And at that point, they have an option to consider it, or consider adoption, or to not become parents. But I think it's after many tries. I spoke to one woman who did 8 rounds of IVF before the doctor was like, there's nothing else we can do. We've tried everything possible. We don't know what's happening. We don't know why it's not taking, or why you're not becoming pregnant. So this is our solution right now, is surrogacy. For same-sex couples, they don't really have an option. If they want a genetic child, surrogacy is the only option. If they just want a child in general, adoption is another good option.
How would you go about finding people to be surrogate moms?
The intended parents, you mean?
No, for you as an agency. So that if someone comes to you, you have a list of surrogate moms that you can approach that would be, that you could compare or join with a couple, right? Because you have to be able to put them together. They have to have some things in common, right?
Correct. Yes, we look at values and different things, different ideals of family and pregnancy and stuff like that going forward, relationships and stuff. When we do make that connection, the one side, the intended parents, they're out looking for support. They're looking for an agency, so they just come to us through our website, through social media, through people I've met. Oh yeah, I know somebody that's struggling. Let me introduce you. Finding the surrogates is a little more tricky, because they're not Googling, how do I become a surrogate? They just don't know. And so it's getting the education out there. It's doing events, podcasts, networking, just sharing as much as we possibly can about surrogacy in general, so that more women know about it and can step forward and take that amazing opportunity.
So surrogacy is legal in Canada.
Yes.
And as you say, it's altruistic. I'll throw this out. How do the churches feel about surrogacy?
That's a good question. I haven't seen any negativity towards it outwardly. It is possible within their congregation that it's not something that is accepted. But we haven't seen any in the 10 years I've been in surrogacy, since I was a surrogate myself. I haven't seen an outward public cry or negativity towards it from the churches.
All right. But then again, it's not something that everybody talks about. It's like adoption.
Correct.
We don't talk about it.
Correct.
I'm curious, as you say, you have to do podcasts, you have to put it out there, looking for surrogate mothers. And people looking for surrogate mothers, there's a lot of them, from what I gather, but actually having surrogate mothers is something else. Now, in the United States, they get paid to be a surrogate mom.
Yes, they do.
I was reading one article where the lady was saying that she was saving up to buy a house, and that was what she was doing. So that's very costly there, whereas in Canada, it's not as costly to do that. But you're looking for women that are as selfless as you are.
Yes.
You know, and that's what I admire so much about you. And I don't know where you find those women, and maybe through churches or because people who believe in God and want to be there, a lot of them are selfless, right?
Yeah.
So I'm still trying to put my head around how you find these women.
Yeah, me too.
So how long have you had your agency?
It's almost a year and a half. We started January of 2025.
All right. And is that kind of a full-time job for you?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And have you connected any families so far?
Not yet. We are working on getting some of the women through our pre-screening to clear all the physical and psychological stuff before we connect them to our intended parents.
All right. So in your pre-screening, what comes out as something that you actually need from a woman? I'm assuming that there's no drugs involved, no alcohol involved. They have faith. Tell me what values you're looking for.
So there's the typical age. They have to be a certain age, between 21 and 45. They have to be, like you said, free of alcohol and drugs and smoking. But then we're also looking for those that are secure in their life. So because you don't get paid to do it, you need to be secure financially, whether or not the woman works, as long as if she has a partner that is the breadwinner in the house, that's totally okay too. She doesn't have to work per se, as long as her family is supported financially, because this isn't something that she's going to make any money on, and we don't want that financial stress. If she does have a job, we need to make sure the job is flexible enough for her to attend appointments during the day, because fertility clinics are not open after hours. So if her job is not flexible and she's going to risk losing that job by taking the time off to go to these appointments, that's not good either. We're also looking for support in her life, because she will have children. Does she have someone to care for those children if she is at an appointment, or if she has to travel to the fertility clinic that could be a couple hours away? Does she have someone there for that? Because again, we don't want to put her family out. We don't want her stressing over having to bring the kids with her and having to worry about her children when she's doing this. So we want to make sure she's got that support as well. Then there's also the question about termination. Early in a pregnancy, if there is a genetic abnormality found, who gets to decide if this pregnancy is terminated or not? And what grounds is it okay to terminate the pregnancy or not? And so we have those conversations early on, because some intended parents, they're against termination. They're like, nope, whatever child we get, that's our child. We're going to raise it. We're going to love it. Totally okay. Some intended parents are, nope, we do not want any genetic abnormalities. We want this child as healthy as possible. So if something is found that can threaten their lifespan or impact their function in everyday life, then we may consider termination. So the surrogate has to be on board with that if we connect her with intended parents that potentially may terminate. So it's completely her choice. If she is totally against termination, that is 100% okay. I've seen surrogates that say, no, I will not terminate. It's a child, it's a life. I'm not going to terminate unless my life is at risk. And the only way to save my life is to end the pregnancy. And that's okay. We want to honor those values, and we want to honor what she believes and what her family believes. So we'll connect her with intended parents that have the same values. So we're looking at those values as well. And also, one of the things that isn't something you can measure, but as we're going through all these things with the surrogate and having conversations and talking to her about the different steps and getting her to visit the doctor, to get a clearance letter, to get some blood work done, to go for a psychological screening, to fill out a questionnaire, simple as that. If the surrogate is hesitant to do these things, if she's kind of dragging her feet and not getting things done, it may mean she's maybe not 100% committed to a journey. Maybe she's super busy and, this is a lot. We don't want to overwhelm her. But if those things aren't getting done, it puts sort of that seed of doubt as to whether or not she'll be able to do a successful journey, because I don't want to say a lot of it is asked of her, but there are typical appointments, just like any pregnancy, going to appointments and having to do the checkups and all of those things. So if she can't do the beginning part, maybe it's not the right time for her. So we're looking at sort of the buy-in as well, because it's not like a day adventure. It's a months-long journey to get to the end. So we want to make sure that everybody is committed right from the beginning.
When you find a surrogate mom, do you hold her hand through everything?
Yes, for sure.
And guide her, and you're always there, so that you're always there. If she has questions, she can ask you, she can call for your support.
Yes.
And what kind of things would they need through that 9 months pregnancy?
Well, they may need someone to go to appointments with them. So if they are somewhat local to us, we will do that, because if they don't want to go to pregnancy appointments on their own and the intended parents can't go and their spouse is at work, we can be a body. We can be that support and go with them. Sometimes pregnancy isn't easy. You have days where you just feel crappy, whether that's tired or sick or whatever. And sometimes you just need somebody to talk to just to get you through that day. And that's what we can be there for. Sometimes things don't go well, just like a typical pregnancy, whether it's a miscarriage or a late term loss, and we want to be there. Or maybe it's a diagnosis of gestational diabetes or preeclampsia, something that comes up in pregnancy. We want to be there to support them in any way that is needed and to work through these things that may come up as the pregnancy goes on. Even early labor, we want to be there because you can go into labor at any time. Make sure that she's prepared, make sure we're checking in with her, and she can call us in the middle of the night if she needs someone there to support during labor as well.
So basically, when this woman is pregnant with having an embryo inserted, they can go through all aspects of pregnancy, from morning sickness, the headaches, the swollen feet.
Everything.
They go through it's just like a normal pregnancy.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know. I didn't like the morning sickness, and I didn't like when I couldn't see my ankles. So. All right. So tell me about Embrace Surrogacy. You said you started that with this other lady who had used a surrogate.
Yes.
Okay. And did you say she also had children of her own?
She has a younger daughter. So I carried her older daughter, and when I was pregnant, she got pregnant again. And then that pregnancy stuck. They tried everything, her and her husband, to get pregnant, and nothing worked, which is why she ended up at surrogacy. But this one stayed. And so I delivered in August, and then she delivered her youngest daughter in February. So they're 2 different years, but they are just over 5 months apart. So her name's Rena, by the way. That is my business partner. And as an agency, we're there. Our main role is support, whether it's support for the intended parents, because some of our intended parents are international. So we've got intended parents hanging out in France, trusting a woman over here in Canada to do the right thing and carry a baby for them. And that takes a huge amount of trust, not being in the same country or down the street from someone that's carrying your baby. So we want to be that source of trust and communication and support for intended parents, but also 100% for the surrogates.
How do you compare surrogacy in Canada to surrogacy in the US? How would you compare the two?
It's very different. I think the biggest difference is the compensation. The other difference is healthcare. In Canada, a woman who's pregnant does get healthcare covered for pregnancy throughout. There's no extra cost unless an extra test has to be done. That's not covered, but that's very rare in pregnancy. And so that cost isn't on the intended parents. In the US, their healthcare is different. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but not everything is covered, which is why when you mentioned earlier it's more expensive in the US, it's not just because the pregnant or the surrogate gets paid, it's also because of the healthcare difference between here and the States. I think it's getting paid, you go into it for a different reason. I don't know if it's a good reason, a bad reason. I'm not going to judge and say those that get paid don't do it for a good reason, because they're doing it for their own reasons and they're helping somebody else in the process. But it's a different reason, and that could impact the journey. It may not. I know I've heard of lots of people that have done it. They've gone to the States for a surrogate and it's worked out wonderfully well.
So do you think surrogacy will become more common in real life?
That's our hope. That is one of our biggest goals with Embrace Surrogacy, is education just about surrogacy. And so then more people can be helped. But that is, someone who described it the other day as an idea kind of takes seed and then it grows a little, and then eventually one day it's mainstream. And that's what we're hoping, is one day surrogacy will be mainstream, but it's going to take some conversations, because even infertility is not spoken about. Very often a woman goes through infertility and keeps it quiet because of shame or embarrassment or judgment. And if we're not talking about it, then it can't be part of the conversation.
Now, this is a really hard question. Do you think that God has made certain people not able to have children for some reason?
That is a tough question. And I was having a conversation with someone just yesterday who was telling me that she's very spiritual, and was saying that as much as intended parents are seeking surrogates, surrogates are also seeking that journey. So even though the women may not know it, and then she put a little caveat in there and said, except for those that aren't destined to be parents. And I don't want to believe that I don't want to believe that everyone couldn't be a parent. But I think part of me does kind of believe that we are all on earth for different reasons and different purposes. And some it's being a parent, and sometimes it's not, because there's a different purpose for that person that doesn't involve being a parent.
Yeah, we all have a purpose. And I definitely believe that though they say that we have choices, we don't really have a choice. The universe is going to give us what is meant to be, right? And even though we make a choice, sometimes the universe gives us things that put us on a different path anyway, because that was the wrong choice that we made.
Yeah.
So there is somebody who guides us, and basically we're born to die, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hopefully we live until we die, but yes, we are. That is the ultimate
And
end.
that we can live and enjoy life in between. So thank you very much, Darcy. I think do you think we've covered everything, or is there anything else that you would like to say specifically?
No,
Please.
I think we've talked about everything.
Okay, so give a plug for Embrace Surrogacy as to how they can contact you and get in touch with you.
Well, we have a website, which is embracesurrogacy.com. There's lots of information for intended parents and surrogates on there. We are also found on every social media platform. I'm pretty sure, oh no, maybe not LinkedIn, but we're on Facebook, we're on TikTok, and we're on Instagram. We post all kinds of information, and we are always having information sessions about for surrogates or for women considering surrogacy, just to come and ask questions. So you can check that out on our social media and find out when the next one is if you're interested, or just, your interest is piqued a little bit.
And because we are on radio, can you give a telephone number that someone can contact you at?
Oh, that is a good question. Yeah, I guess we could. Yeah, it would be 905-409-1653 would be a number you can reach me at.
Perfect. So, ladies and gentlemen, today's conversation, it doesn't end with simple answers. It ends with more questions. Questions about motherhood, connection, biology, and what it truly means to create a family. Do we need more women like Darcy? Women willing to help others become parents? Definitely, yes. Is surrogacy something society should talk about more openly? And what do we really know about the bond between a baby and the woman carrying them? Here in Canada, surrogacy is based on altruism. A surrogate mother cannot legally be paid for carrying a child. In the United States, the laws are different, and compensation is often part of the process. But as we mentioned, the cost of healthcare in the US is also very expensive. Does payment change the meaning of surrogacy, or simply make it more accessible for families desperate to have children? One thing is certain. While many intended parents are searching for help to build a family, finding women willing to become surrogates remains the hardest part. Darcy saw that need and chose not to walk away from it, but instead step deeper into helping families become whole. This isn't a simple conversation, but the most important conversations never are. I'm Janet Monroe, and this is Roots and Branches Adoption Stories here on KFred Radio. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.